Of course. So thank you, Diamond, again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to do this. So
Absolutely.
just to start just to start off, would you happen to provide a brief summary, just a brief summary of what you're currently doing?
Yeah, I'm currently the deputy sports editor at the Philadelphia Inquirer. In that role, I oversee our Philadelphia Eagles coverage and NFL coverage. And one of the other things I'm also doing is overseeing the sports sections, long form and premium storytelling content. A lot of the enterprise stories that we work on, the longer stories that really shed light on kind of issues far and wide. That falls under kind of my direction, and hopefully I can kind of lead those stories even in my, as I'm starting out here in my first month. Hopefully I can, spearhead a lot of those stories among our staff members.
That's awesome. So kind of going into that, what would you say is the difference between your current role and previous roles? I remember last time we chatted, you were at the Athletic. How would you
Yeah,
say?
for sure. Yeah, at the Athletic, what I was doing was for I helped launch the sports business and media vertical. And, later on, I moved over and was a senior editor overseeing our NBA coverage. And I think this current role is more in line with the NBA job in terms of overseeing kind of team beat coverage and working with beat writers who, follow the team day to day, or hopefully one day we'll get back in the locker rooms and do great work there. But yeah, it's just overseeing uh, beat coverage, which I'm accustomed to because in my career, just have been a beat writer for a long time myself. And but I think in the current role, I'll also get a chance to kind of spread my wings a little bit and work on some longer pieces. I in my writing career, I wrote those longer pieces myself, and have a track record of being able to kind of find those stories and really bring those stories to life. And just looking forward to in my new role to oversee those stories being written as well.
That's really awesome. To kind of tie into your writing career, what would you say are the key differences, if any, between previous roles, such as just focusing on getting the story out, and then now that well, you have been, but compared to with the Athletic, and then now with your current role, overseeing other writers or managing other writers, what would you say is the difference between just writing compared to hitting the managerial level?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think as a writer, you see every part of that side of the team, right? Like, everything that's going on. You're seeing it up close and personal. You're looking at, you're getting to know all the personalities of the players, the coaches, the team executives. Everything about that team, and you're on the ground. You're traveling from city to city. Everything. And I think as a manager, you kind of take a step back a little bit and look at the 360 picture. What kind of content on that beat then works for the wider audience. And whether it's you need a feature story at this moment, you need a more basic story at another moment. You're always trying to push for more and more premium content. And that's the goal, is having seen it from both sides, whether it's been on the ground as a writer and from farther away as an editor. You're able to hopefully be able to ideally drive that coverage to where it serves everybody. It serves the most people as possible. It gets the widest audience as possible. And that's the great part of it about it. It's a lot of it, I think, is also just building trust among your writers as a manager, right? I think it for me, it helps to have been in their shoes a little bit and to have experienced that. And so you kind of know when to maybe push someone a little bit more out of their comfort zone, and sometimes when to pull back and say, like, it's been a busy part of the schedule for them, and everybody's stressed out. And you can kind of understand that, having been there yourself. So I think a lot of that is just understanding where everybody's feeling most comfortable and putting them in those positions to then succeed.
Definitely, and I definitely could tell that just learning from the writing perspective, that definitely helps when you're overseeing, especially in a place like the Philadelphia Inquiry. So that thing that's really cool. That's really good. And so kind of tying into, you've talked a little bit about highlights of your writing career that you've kind of learned across your entire career, whether it's with the Athletic, the Inquirer now, and then previous stops. What would you say are some of those key lessons that you've learned from working in sports, specifically in the journalism side?
Yeah, you take a lot of lessons just doing, I've traveled from place to place and had many different writing jobs and editing jobs. But I think one of the things is that, there's a lot of noise out there in the journalism industry, a lot of different kinds of content you can do. But I think you all always have to kind of keep that perspective that everyone's got a story to tell. And I say that because there's times when you might think you know everything about a certain subject, you have it all kind of figured out, and I think that's when you start missing things and start assuming things and start maybe overlooking stories that could have been found, had you kept a little bit more of a curiosity about the world and the world around you. So I think that kind of leads into just always kind of being on your game and always being prepared to work hard at it, being prepared every day to go into a situation, figure out what the best angle is, what the most interesting angle is, and then keep on digging beyond that. And so that's what I learned as a writer, and that's a lot of what I hope to carry on as an editor in kind of more of a leadership role. Obviously you can't replace hard work. And that's kind of, a given. I think a lot of people understand that. But, the other thing that you learn is just to have resilience about yourself, whether it's as a writer, and not being able to, not settling for, for just okay work, and just keeping on, knocking down doors to get to the bottom of things. And I also think it's tough out there, right? It's difficult to be in the sports industry. It's difficult to be in the journalism industry, and you're going to face a lot of challenges, whether they're while pursuing journalism or just being in the business of journalism. I've lost my job a couple times before. They were kind of they were very big moments at the time when I experienced them. But I think you learn that you learn to gain a confidence about yourself, and you learn what made you kind of fall in love with this business, and then you keep pressing on. And I think those things are important.
Those are all great points. As someone who majored in the journalism area for undergrad, and now I'm in a different set of media, I have plenty of friends who thankfully they got their start in the journalism field, and they were telling me how resilient it is, how different of an industry it is. So kind of tying into that, there's moments I'm sure for if you may be on your quote unquote off game, or maybe not writer's block per se, but some of those moments where it's just not this, I'm not feeling it. Something's, I don't know, I'm just kind of off. How do you kind of, as a journalist, combat whether it's the writer's block or at those moments where an interview is a little tough or the interviewees are not responsive? How do you kind of bounce back from those challenges?
I think in the short term, when you're dealing with one of those things, you've got to remember that good reporting leads to good writing. And so it might not be that you actually have writer's block. It might just be that you don't have all the information that you'd like. And so one of the ways to snap out of that is just go get more information if possible, right? Report your way out of that situation. But in terms of just long, taking a step back and how to combat those things, long after the story's been filed. I think I think self-improvement is like really important, right? I think it's important to read, not just necessarily things in sports, but read about the world around you. And I think when you do that, you kind of you pick up a lot of the different, you're exposed to a lot of different ways of storytelling. And I think as you become more versatile in how you can tell stories, in the things that you're interested in, then I think that'll ideally make the writing process a lot easier. And I think readers can tell that too. They can tell that you're not just interested in counting balls and strikes and kind of looking at the smaller aspects of sports, but that you have a whole sense of curiosity about yourself, and that you're able to write credibly and think about the world at large.
That's awesome advice. And so you talked about that you've traveled a lot of places in your career. What would you say are some, maybe one or two, I'll even give three, one of three highlights from your sports career?
Well, I think one of them would be getting a chance to cover the Golden State Warriors at a time when they really kind of took the world by storm with the rise of Steph Curry. I was able to cover their first championship season in quite a while, and then the following season covering the record-setting 73 win team that later didn't go on to win the finals and kind of blew it to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I think that was one career highlight in terms of covering essentially my hometown team and seeing kind of just something that those fans hadn't seen before. So that was definitely one memory. I think getting able to, I mentioned at the Athletic, being able to launch something and start up a section, that covers, sports business and topics that we see off the field. And I think, that was a highlight to where you can really not only learn something different, but then create coverage that really sets the agenda for those who pay attention to, especially to things that happen off the field, to see those stories come alive, to provide editing for that section, to where it obviously happened during a pandemic, and to see that coverage kind of really, I guess, carry some of the coverage when sports shut down. I think there's a lot of pride that I take in overseeing that. And so those are just a couple moments where, I really felt like, those are things that you don't forget. And so as a writer, you spend a lot of time going from city to city, traveling to a lot of different places, always on the road, always on a plane somewhere. But I think that helped me understand that you can make a difference with editing as well. And really getting a chance to impact coverage in that way. And so that's pretty meaningful to me.
That's all really cool, and especially the Warriors and their historic run. Sorry, Warriors fans, about the painful reminder of ending that historical season, but that's still awesome that you saw the rise of Curry and building something new at the Athletic. That personally, I'm also a fan of stories that you don't really see that's on the courts, on the field, not just as a grad student where we study the business side of it, which you don't really see on the court, but I think they're just also those enterprise type of stories are also interesting, because especially during a pandemic when you can't see anything. I think that's really awesome. Now, advice about the business and journalism industry, or just sports. What advice would you give to college students or even just recent graduates who want to pursue the sports industry, period, and specifically subpoint B, the sports journalism world?
Yeah, I think obviously it's a very competitive industry, whether it's you're competing for scoops or you're competing for jobs and internships. And I think I think college students would be wise to just get as much experience as possible. And to me, it's not necessarily, it doesn't matter where. You don't necessarily have to have a big city, large newspaper, large website, uh, kind of internship to get to where you want to go. And I think it does come back to self-improvement, what I mentioned earlier. You have to, you can't just out resume and out, your way into a job necessarily. You have to get better. And I think you have to be open to getting better. And that's a lot of it. Is taking direction from editors, taking direction from your mentors, and really being open to a lot of different things. One of the other things I'll mention is just getting outside your comfort zone. It's okay to not do an internship or take your first job in your hometown. You can go places, if those options are available to you, by taking on jobs in places that you would have never thought you would end up. And I highly recommend that. I've done it myself. I was a California native, who hadn't really lived outside of the state. And at one point 10 years ago, I made, not 10 years ago, like 8 years ago, I made the move to Michigan, and was able to start a time there when I was covering Michigan State basketball and football. And it changed my life. It really help open my eyes to living in a different part of the country, seeing different things being done different ways, and being able to report on all that. And it was just the time of my life. And if you're in that position where you're looking for your first role and you're able to get a great opportunity, I would just say definitely strongly consider that. Not every your first job won't be your last, and so make sure you take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of you.
That is all spot on. Thank you for all the advice. And just thank you again for taking the time to do this out of your busy schedule and then with moving to SoCal. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much for Nicolette. Best of luck to everyone.